Love it. Ladies and gentlemen, we are back. The Giant Killer, American hero, mercenary, spy, the incredible true story of the smallest man to serve in the U.S. military, Green Beret Captain Richard J. Flaherty. David Usick with us. How you doing, David?
Doing great. How you doing?
Marvelously well. We just went from talking to the largest police officer on earth, our buddy Officer Dave,
that
who
we
is
know of.
Massively strong, wears a size 58 sport coat, and he's not fat. I will tell you that. So
could have used him as a partner.
Yeah, there you go. You'd have loved him as a partner. He's a great cop, as a matter of fact. I want to hear all about Green Beret Captain Richard J. Flaherty. How do you know about Captain Flaherty?
Well, I worked in a small city in Miami. I'm retired now, 19 years. And I met him on the streets. He was homeless.
Really?
Yeah, we started out, anyone who's on the streets as police officers, we try to approach him and see what sort of help we can get him. He didn't need any immediate help, and he kind of just wanted to do his own thing. But we struck up a friendship, and that started meeting for coffee and meeting for sandwiches, and the guy was a real intelligent guy.
God, I'm just reading some of this stuff, David, that are very tremendously sad. Ask too many questions, said Flaherty, and it could be bad for your career and dangerous to my health. And he died 8 hours later.
So 15 years of friendship, and he certainly never let on. He was 4'9". Actually, his final medical examination showed he was 4'7". So God. Maybe let's call it in between 4'8". Mm-hmm. But the summer 2015, 15 years of friendship, he drops the bomb on me saying, hey, it's time I tell you who I really am. And as a cop, we're like, oh, my God, now what is he going to tell me?
Yeah.
So we're a skeptical bunch. The job will do it to you.
Right.
So I'm like, oh, no. So he said, I'm the smallest man ever served in the military and became a Green Beret, served in Vietnam, Thailand, won the Silver Star, 2 Bronze Stars, 2 Purple Hearts. And I'm thinking to myself, I felt really bad. I was like, well, if this, delusion keeps him going during the day, and he certainly doesn't use any stolen valor, I didn't realize my friend was that bad off. But I did go home that night, and I almost didn't check on the internet, but I did. And stories about him popping up as being the smallest man, and stories about him being a suspected CIA agent throughout his life started popping up in newspaper articles, and I was blown away.
Wow.
That is so amazing. What drove a 4'8" tall man to do the things that he did?
That is a great question. So when I started asking him about it, he said he had no interest in the military or anything early on in life. He said that a couple of the guys from his neighborhood in Stamford, Connecticut, went over to Vietnam, and he didn't care. But when they came back in boxes, he wanted to know what happened to his friends, and he finally cared. So they told him it was impossible. You got to be 5 feet tall to go in the military, 100 pounds, and he wasn't even close. And Richard Flaherty didn't believe it impossible. So he wrote for 2 years straight letters to congressmen and senators. So they finally said, "Fine, here's a waiver, but you'll never make it through basic training."
Right.
And he didn't just make it through basic. He became. He achieved the impossible of becoming a Special Forces captain.
What's amazing about that, David, to me is what an asset he must have been to the Green Beret, because nobody in any situation would have ever thought that he had the position, the talent, all of the things that he did have. They would have just overlooked him completely, I would imagine.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, there were so many obstacles, including the obstacles, but how do you carry 70 pounds on your back when you weigh 97? How do you jump out of an airplane? When he jumped out of the airplanes, they used to strap machine gun parts to him because he was so light, he would float for hours. So they would strap machine gun parts on his legs, hoping that he would come down, but sometimes he didn't. So
That's phenomenal.
It was quite a ride for him.
So we got to get to the sad part, David. How did Mr. Flaherty end up homeless?
Yeah.
So that is a combination of things, and there's a new thing that I'm attributing it to. let's start with number one is a thing called the RIF, the reduction in force. So 1972, I'm sorry, 1972, 1975, they started reducing the size of our military, and unfortunately the officers are the first ones to get the pinch. So, his career was ended short by the military and made him disgruntled. He fought his first battle in Vietnam was in the Tet Offensive.
Oh.
It's a pretty tough fight to be your first battle as a platoon leader. And they lost a lot of men. So I think it always haunted him, not him getting killed, but, that he didn't bring all his men back. There's certainly a lot of evidence of people who can attribute to how, much that got to him. And then the new thing I'm going to attribute is they're talking about traumatic brain injuries.
Oh,
and he was certainly blown up a couple of times. So you put all those pieces together, on top of the fact that once he got out of the military, he was just that funny little dwarf people used to make fun of again. Nobody cared what he did or what he did for his country. He was once again just the butt of everyone's joke. So I would say it's a bunch of things.
Yeah, it sounds like it. Now, you said you were a cop in the Miami area, is that right?
Yeah, 19 years. Yeah.
I hear a little Boston in there. Are you from?
No, ma'am. That's Brooklyn. Brooklyn all the way.
Sorry.
No, ma'am.
Okay.
No way. Boston. It's Brooklyn.
I heard a little East Coast, upper East Coast. I was like,
you're mixing your East Coast metaphors.
I am. Sorry.
Yeah, I lost my accent, and maybe I'm as phony as a $3 bill.
There we go.
There you go. Right.
That does
now
help.
we're back at home, right there, ladies and gentlemen. So, what you said it was in a small town by Miami?
Well, it's inside of Miami. The city is called Aventura, and
Aventura.
Miami
Yeah, sure.
Broke it up into a bunch of little jurisdictions. So we're about a 109-man police force. That's where he lived and died. He lived in our city. He lived under a tree, and unfortunately, I think you were alluding to earlier was after he told me the revelation over lunch. It took me a couple of days to track down the undercover agent that he was warning me not to contact. He's saying it's dangerous for your career and bad for my health. So I did find the agent, and he did confirm everything Flaherty told me. And then 8 hours after that call, Richard gets killed in a hit and run.
Oh God!
So it was pretty sad.
That's extremely sad. How are you dealing with that? It sounds like you guys became friends.
Yeah, it was. So what happened? The story goes that after I learned all the stuff about him, I did approach him. I said, "Hey, Richard, I want to do like some sort of story on your life, a documentary, a book, something." And he said, "Yeah, just make me 3 promises." I said, "Okay. Promise number 1, we start it, you finish it." I said, "You got that promise?" Promise number 2, don't look into the undercover stuff, which unfortunately I did. And promise number 3 is if this gets made into a movie, his quote is $3 million and Brad Pitt has to play him in it.
There you go. It's not a bad choice, actually. Richard must have cut quite a fine figure if Brad Pitt would be the guy.
Yeah. It would be beyond lucky.
Why do you think it is he didn't want you to look at the undercover stuff? Just because?
Well, he claimed that case made a lot of enemies. And it is true. When you look at the documentation now, it's very controversial because the case was about a bunch of other Green Berets that were allegedly stealing. Well, they were convicted, so not allegedly stealing tons of weapons out of Fort Bragg. So he worked undercover with the ATF, but if you look at the newspaper articles and what the defendant said, they all claim that was a CIA operation to get weapons down to the Sandinistas in Central America. So there's a lot of gray areas in Richard's life.
Yeah, sure sounds like it, ladies and gentlemen. The book is called The Giant Killer, an American hero, mercenary spy, the incredible true story of the smallest man to serve in the U.S. military, Green Beret Captain Richard J. Flaherty. David Usick with us today. I would say this, David. There are so many things that we could have gotten there. People, you need to buy the book and read the book because there are many, many more things that came up in the descriptor of the book that we couldn't even get to. some great questions about his decommission, him being decommissioned, all kinds of things. So, David, we're going to have you back and talk more about this book. It's really, really interesting.
Thank you so much, and I'd love to be back. Listen, this isn't just all about tragedy. You got to celebrate the guy's life, and I like that we were solemn when we had to, but we laughed when we should.
That's exactly right. And by the way, that was my lovely wife that insulted you by saying you were a Bostonian.
That's not a problem. Just don't have your buddy Big Dave looking for me.
Yeah, there you go. Hey, I don't want him looking for me either. I'm right there with you. Thank you, David. Have a great day, sir.
It's a pleasure. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye. What a story. What a story.
Wow.